What's up, everybody? Welcome back to this week's episode 5. We had some guests in last week, so big thanks to them as well for coming on.
I did see they found more sheds already, too.
Yeah, I know. I think it was the day after they came down and recorded, they went out and found a couple more. So, yeah, like I said, big thanks to them for coming down and enjoying the podcast with us.
Yeah, I can't wait to have them back on again.
Yeah,
learn a little more.
Yeah, that's what we do. So today's episode is going to be a little bit different. The topic's going to pretty much be public land horror stories and the people that you encounter on public land, most likely game wardens.
The worst part of public hunting.
Yeah, so basically not to tell everybody you saw a big deer.
Not game wardens. They're not necessarily the worst part, but just public hunting.
Depends on who you get.
Yeah.
I've heard some pretty interesting stories from Tad, which we'll probably get into that this episode.
Yeah, I've had some buddies that had some run-ins when we were younger that didn't turn out so well.
I mean, with Tad's deal, that's maybe something to wait for him to come on because he
lived it.
Yeah. So, well, not necessarily, just from an outside point of view.
And as long as you're doing your part to do stuff right, you're gonna be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, don't be doing illegal stuff and then expect to get away with it.
Yeah, as long as you're crossing your I's, dotting your T's, that's all that matters in the end.
I guess if that's how that saying goes.
What, did I fuck it up?
Yeah.
Cross your T's and dot your
T's and dot your I's.
Dude, what is wrong with me?
Calhoun. Yeah, I went there.
I hate it. Every day I wake up and I'm like, yep, I graduated from Calhoun. My life's just lovely.
But, you're living your dream now.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
To an extent.
Yeah. So, no, I guess we'll kind of go into it.
Start with some recent ones.
Yeah, I guess recent-wise, I didn't really have any bad things go on this past season.
You didn't.
I know you did.
I had a couple of incidents.
So let's start with that.
That were similar.
Yeah.
Like the first one, so last year I started out and saw this pretty nice deer on public land. So I assumed he was still there. Well, as season started, I saw one four-wheeler consistently parked where I knew he was hunting the next cove over, which was still in the territory, but he was keeping his distance, which I was fine.
Being respectful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know the gentleman, but we'd see each other in passing and wave and whatnot. And next thing I know, probably a week, maybe 2 weeks after I put my stand up, I went in one day.
Was that the stand in the timber?
Yeah.
Where the Millennium is?
No, the other one. The one north.
Oh, where you shot your doe?
Yes, where I shot my doe out of. I went in a couple weeks probably after I shot my doe, and there was a stand not even 75 yards in front of me.
Gosh.
And I'm like, and it wasn't like my stand was super hidden or anything. Yeah, it was just a hanger, but it had a red strap hanging it to the tree. So, you could see it.
Yeah.
You had to look a little bit because I was up 20 feet, and these people only put theirs up 10. Ladder stand. 2-man ladder stand, of course. But, so I was like, well, whatever. I'll still hunt here. And if they're here, they're here. If they're not, oh, well. Well, I'd went in one morning early, probably at least an hour before daylight, just to see if there was a buck moving through or not. And I'm sitting there, and I hear a couple deer start to move off to my left in the cedar patch. I'm like, all right. So I'm just sitting there, and all of a sudden I see this side-by-side pull up to the edge of the road, and then they took off. I'm like, well, that was kind of weird. But wasn't a couple minutes later, I see this red light walking down through the timber. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, man.
You're late to the party, son.
Like, this guy's going to walk right into that stand and set up, be loud, right where these deer are 25 yards from him.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not far at all.
Right in the bedroom.
Yeah, so he starts heading what I thought was that direction, And then all of a sudden, he took like a 90-degree turn and started heading almost right towards me. So, of course, I took my headlight with the red, and I flashed him about 3 times, and he stops. I can see him stop and look down at something. And then all of a sudden, there was no lights. So I'm like, all right, he's thinking about it. And then I hear the side-by-side start up the hill again and come down, and then it left. I'm like, well, I didn't see him walk out, but maybe he walked out and left. It wasn't 5 minutes later. This guy is literally right under me. 5 yards, standing, and stops.
Huh?
No, never looked up at me or
Really?
anything. He just stops, and he like pulls his phone out. And I'm just like, man, I really want to yell at you right now, but I know those deer have not ran off because I never heard them move.
Right.
So like, I know they're still there. And I'm like, dude, you're just an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, you know I'm here.
You meet him.
And I'm pretty sure you know I'm sitting right here.
Yep.
But he went on down probably 200 yards. And I was like, all right, well, I'm in this sweet spot where they come out of this cedar patch and they head straight across the tip of this cove. And about this time, I see this deer. It's probably 45 minutes after daylight. And I see it. And all I see is body. I can't see anything else through the thick stuff. I'm like, all right. So I got positioned where I'm ready. If this deer starts walking across, if it's big enough, I'm going to take a shot. And about the time I see it, this dude decides he's going to start climbing the tree with his climber. And he's making all kinds of racket. And that deer just starts bolting past me. And I mean, it was a decent 8-point.
Yeah.
It stopped like 50 yards from me and was broadside, but it was behind a tree.
Was that the little 8 that was running with the bigger 8, or?
No, I'm not even sure. I saw this deer probably once. Like, that's probably the only time I ever saw him, but I was just like...
This was early season, too.
Yeah, I was still could have shot him and still had another tag later on, but I'm like, really, man?
Yeah.
Like, you just
probably
ruined the day.
See that deer anymore because potentially he left for the rut, or just, he'll be back.
And it wouldn't...
If he didn't get killed.
At that point, you're just like blood boiling. You're like, whatever, I'm done. Well, when 10 minutes later, that side-by-side comes back, and there's 2 guys that come walking into that other stand. And I'm just like, well, this day just got interesting.
No.
Go
away.
They've got backpacks and everything. They're like climbing up the tree. They climb down the tree. They throw their backpack on the ground. I'm like, what are y'all doing?
People that shouldn't even be out there. Like,
like...
It's good for people to get out and do this stuff, but
you just
be smart about it. I mean,
just be polite. Like, you had to have known. I mean, I'm a big blob sitting in a tree, and I'm sure that was your buddy, and he texts you, hey, there's somebody else right here.
See, that's the thing. They don't care.
They don't care at all. And I don't know if they were tracking one that shot the night before or what, but like, I walked out, and of course they're like, oh man, we didn't see you. I'm like, I just kept walking.
Sure he didn't.
He's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. He said something. I just threw up the finger. Just kept walking. I was like, dude, I'm done. Y'all have a good day. Like, whatever.
Did you have any more run-ins with them? Or?
No, I actually went in that next week and took that stand down.
Oh, I got you.
I was like, they had to. Either they have shot it or they know that big one was in there and they're just going to
the big 8.
They're going to overpressure all this. And it's just like,
it ain't even worth it at this point.
Yeah. I'll just move down to where I know it's less trafficked.
Right.
And then something fairly similar, I guess you would say, when we had our doe weekend.
Yep.
We put cameras up and...
Which, okay, you're going to that point.
That point. We had been watching our cameras and everything. We moved into this where we put the Millennium stand in the timber. And a week prior we put cameras in that spot and had deer on it almost every day.
Yeah, it was something like that.
They were on there almost every day.
Yep.
And we had one particular deer that was strange. She had one back leg that was missing half her leg. So we were like, we need to help this deer out, basically. Yeah. But
that was a big target list deer.
That was our big target list one for that area. And we were, where were we? We were up at the house getting ready to head down, weren't we? No, we hadn't. You hadn't made it out yet when you got that picture.
Yes, because I hung the cell cam up on one of the Milo fields.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting at home, and I'm like, just chilling. I actually took a nap.
And it was like 11 o'clock, I want to say.
I woke up from my nap, and I'm like, well, I saw my Bushnell went off, and I'm like, I looked at the time that it went off. I'm like, there ain't no way there's
early.
deer. And I mean, there is a way. It's late season.
Yeah,
they're getting on their feet to eat, but it's around that time.
We hadn't had anything really in that
in the time frame. So I was like, that's kind of crazy. Deer moving, fairly early. Get out there and get after it. Opened up my Bushnell app, and it's just this guy walking past the cell cam.
Yeah, and we knew there was one other stand, but where that stand was, he didn't have to pass that camera. So we were like, well, I guess he's just heading way further down. So we didn't think nothing about it. Well, how that place goes, it goes down, and then it opens off to the right to where that cove cuts back in there. And it's got a little field set back in the timber, probably a couple 100 yards. And we were just off of that with that stand. And I'm sitting there, and it's 5 o'clock, and it gets dark. You can't really shoot in the timber at that time of night.
Yeah.
5:45, 6 o'clock at the latest. And
last couple minutes.
5 o'clock, I start hearing movement on the other side of that field, probably 200-300 yards from me. I'm like, okay. And then I heard some turkeys moving around, flying around.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, they're just going to roost. We're good. And about the time it really started getting loud over there, I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I shit not, right in the middle of that field at 200 yards, here comes that guy walking out. Broad daylight, just walking out. Steps out to the edge of that field, stands there and looks around. I'm like, really, man?
And what's funny is right around the same time, I had does working my way.
Yeah,
and then kids in the neighbor's yard. Yeah. So, if you've ever seen Seek One on YouTube, they hunt pretty much urban places, and this kind of reminds you of that.
Yeah, it's just
in
like a little
way.
It's a little subdivision that's got 10, 15 houses.
Most of the stands we have out there, we can see houses.
You can see at least one house from most of them.
But anyways, I had does working to me, and the neighborhood kids started playing, and those deer just started blowing and everything else. I'm like, well, what can you do? But go ahead.
But that guy just walks out and stops. And I'm like, it took all I had not to just yell, what the hell are you doing, man? Why are you not sitting somewhere waiting on these deer to move? Because they're moving every night at this time.
But he don't know that.
Should have had them within 15 minutes. I should have had them on top of me. And
I don't know how you didn't lose it. Dude, I have the utmost.
It takes a lot to not lose it, but yet at the same time, it's like, if I do lose it, then I lose that opportunity of potentially shooting one.
I understand that.
At that time.
Yeah. But honestly surprised he didn't push some to you, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't have any run by me full speed.
Because the general direction he was coming from is
where they were coming from every night.
Yeah. But, and then again, him coming in early.
Yeah,
they could have been right there in the timber, and he could have pushed them on out, you know, and they was never even in there that night. Yeah. And that's what makes you really aggravated, is because you was hunting deer that wasn't even there.
Yeah, and we knew they had been there, and it's just like, really?
Yeah. This could be...
If you're going to hunt, just take the time to...
Did you see deer before he came through? I thought you didn't see any?
No, I didn't see. I had heard what I thought was deer off to my left, and he came out on my right. So I was like, I don't know what he did, when he circled around, pushed them on back down to the lake or what. But
yeah, so 9 times out of 10, he probably pushed all those deer out.
Yeah.
And doing more harm than he is good.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's irritating, but it's something you do have to deal with.
That's the thing. Yeah, and the crazy thing about it is, yes, if you hunt public, you will have these instances.
Yeah, and it's not always what I'd call an idiot move or whatever. It's just people not being ethical and just not paying attention, or they're just out there to be out there.
Yeah. But anyways, what I was saying is you can hunt public land and have these instances, and you can have them on private land too.
Oh, yeah.
Idiots trespassing.
Yeah.
And gosh, we're bashing a lot of people in this podcast.
Worse, that's worse when you're coming onto private land without permission.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just asking for bad news.
Yeah. So a story, my dad, when he first bought the 40-acre farm, the Home 40, what I call it, where I shot the 7 at this year, it's bordered to public land.
Yeah.
And he was rifle hunting in the middle of rifle season, and he was setting up on this hill off of a field and looking down into the timber, kind of looking right down towards public land boundary. Yeah. And here came this orange vest walking through the woods. It is what it is. You know, he kept walking, like, it is what it is. And about that time, he's getting closer and closer and closer. And at that time, see, it's a working cattle operation right now.
Yeah.
So, but at the time, like I said, he had just bought it, so we didn't have fences built or nothing. I was probably not even a year old yet.
Yeah.
And we just didn't have fences built or borders built, but there was signs up that said end of public use area, do not cross this line.
Yeah. And
there was also an old fence that ran through there that you could clearly see, you know, old fence posts and stuff like that. Well, Dad was sitting up on top of the hill, and here came this guy to the fence line, and Dad watched him through his binoculars. He walked to the fence line, he stopped. The dude even looked down at the fence line that was on the ground. And what Dad's story was, he raised his foot over that line, and Dad whistled really loud.
Yeah.
And I guess he stopped and looked his direction, and then he saw my dad. And they was probably 100 yards away from each other. But, yeah, they made eye contact, and
yeah, guy turned around
and walked off.
Luckily, the guy turned around.
Yeah.
Didn't want to be confrontational because there are those guys out there.
Well, he knew that was property line. He knew he couldn't step forward over that. So
yeah, but there's some of them that don't care.
There's some of them that don't care. You were exactly right.
They think they're on something. They're going to go anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I didn't have really any bad stuff happen to me this year. I got some duck hunting stories that shit's crazy.
Get rough.
Yeah. And I know when Drew Scott listens to this, he'll be rolling over. We had times where we about got in fights with guys.
Really?
Full-blown fist fights over stuff like this. Because, well, for one instance, this was not last season, but the season before that, we was hunting a public duck lake, and very well known, more or less, you know, if you're going to hunt it, if you're going to hunt in the evening, get in there at 12 o'clock and be ready. That's all there is to it. You're there, you beat everybody out, you're good, but this proved, in this instance, that didn't even matter.
Yeah.
We got everything set up, and we probably sat down on our marsh chairs around 12:30, and sitting there, and not a lot's flying. We got ducks flying over, but nothing low enough to work or anything like that. So obviously it's right around, this was in January, so it'd be getting dark around 5:30, 5:45-ish. And out there, mainly the fly times was 4 to dark. Or not, for 4 to sunset, which you got to stop hunting at sunset here in Missouri, obviously. And gives you enough time to get your decoys picked up and all that good stuff. But yeah, the ducks flew a lot from 4 to 5:30-ish. And a lot of them roosted there. So yeah, we was sitting there, and 4 o'clock rolls around, and we're starting to see more ducks. Things are looking good. Some of them are flying a little bit lower. We got a group behind us that's working ducks too, and they was probably 300 yards behind us, not even a bother.
Yeah, not any worry to you guys.
Yeah, and I mean, calls sounded good. I mean, so basically to draw the scene for you, it's a great big, probably, I'm going to say 15-acre duck lake is what it is. And it's got it's got levees around it. Well, we're setting in this tree line, and you can see a levee on the other side.
Yeah.
when people were walking across it, I mean, they're small. You know, it's a long way across there. Well, anyways, the funny thing is it's flat lands, so noise carries a lot. Well, there's a rock road that comes down to the duck lake.
Down around it.
And when people use, you know, they ain't got boats or anything, so they're using carts from Walmart or just anything to drag stuff in. What I mean, that's what we used.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we used everything we can to get all of our shit out there because, you know, we had the Invisimans, we had all the decoys, the guns, we had, you know, it's a lot.
Well, we know
more.
how you pack for a hunting trip.
It's a lot. Well, you ain't seen me duck hunt yet,
yeah,
son.
that's true.
So yeah, everybody's got all this stuff and they're bringing it down. And out there, I like to have a dozen decoys. That's what I prefer to have. It's if for a single hunt. Now, if I'm going with Drew, we bring, you know, I bring a dozen and maybe 6 teal, and he'll bring a dozen and maybe 6 pintails or whatever. And out of that, and maybe a mojo or something. Out of that, we have a badass looking spread.
Yeah.
You know, it really catches the eyes of the ducks and helps them bring them down a little closer, but for a look. And anyways, back to the story, we was sitting there and 4 o'clock, we start hearing something. And we're like, and the ducks started flying around 3:30. Like it started turning up pretty good. So normally when the ducks fly around 3:30, it's going to get good.
It's going to be a good day.
And yeah, 4 o'clock, around 4 o'clock, we hear something. Like, fuck, it's a cart. And we're sitting there and we're listening. And we're like, yep, it's coming down that road. Coming down to the duck lake we're hunting. And so instantly I look at my phone. I'm like, dude, it's like 4 o'clock. You got to be shitting me.
Yeah, like, why is this guy waiting?
And it was a weekday, so he could have got out of work and came out there, which, cool. You know, if you're trying to get out and do your stuff, but don't screw up everyone else's hunts. That's what I'm saying. Like duck season, when I hunt a spot, or whenever, there's been many times out there at that particular spot, I'll drive out there at 11 o'clock, and there will be trucks that I know, because I've seen before, sitting there, and I know they're all-day hunters. If I see a truck sitting there, I won't fuck with it.
Yeah.
I won't. I'm not going to mess with it.
Somewhere else, try something else.
Yeah, because one thing, if I don't know them really well, I obviously don't have the contact, so I can't text them and be like, hey, where are you all at? So that way I don't have that. And I mean, regardless, I don't want to screw up anybody else's hunt.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, he hits this levee in front of us, and I can see him, and we can both see him. At that point, that's when I told Drew, I'm like, I really need to start bringing some binos with me.
Let's see who it is.
Yeah, so I'm like, I really need to start doing that. But yeah, we're watching him, and so where we was setting, the levee kind of ran down like this. The people watching the video podcast can see, but it kind of ran down beside us, and we was kind of basically right in the middle of that lake. So we was sitting there kind of in the middle, which both ways is about 100 yards.
Yeah.
So as this guy's coming down this levee, he's getting a little closer, and his body's getting a little bigger. And I look, and this dude's got a deer cart with 6 decoys.
He's not even...
And a lawn chair.
So he's not even going to be covered at all.
No.
He's just going to be out there in the open.
Exactly. And so yeah, he comes down about halfway down that levee, and he stops. And at this point, I love duck hunting with Drew, but God, he has a temper when it comes to this stuff. Drew, I love you, buddy, but holy shit, man. Like, in a roundabout way, like I said before, we about got in a lot of fist fights. But yeah, so we're watching this guy, and at this point, me and Drew's both standing up, you know, looking.
Yeah,
we're out of
the ducks coming right now. So.
We're out of the tree line in the open.
Yeah.
Hell,
he's
Drew.
Be able to see your decoys too.
Drew even went and moved decoys and threw them. And this guy's still standing there looking.
Yeah, just like.
And he's thinking about it, like, you know, he's thinking about going in right there because there was a little island right in there. Yeah. And Drew comes back to the trees, and I look at him like, you think he saw us? And Drew's like, yeah, he saw us. Well, I'm going to sit back down now. And when we sat back down, here comes a group of about 20 mallards wanting in our spread.
Yeah.
But they just won't do it because of this guy.
Yeah, he's just standing out in the open.
Yeah. Well, those mallards pass, and then he hits the water and starts coming to us.
What the heck?
I'm like, dude, you got to be kidding me right now. Like, at this point, Drew's not saying a word.
Yeah.
At this point, Drew is scaring me because I don't know what's about to unfold here. And we're just sitting there watching this guy, and sure as shit, he hits that island. He offloads all of his stuff. He gets back in the water, and he just starts throwing his 6 decoys. So me and Drew stand back up, and we're just watching him. And about that time, I looked at Drew. I'm like, what are we gonna do? He's like, I'm gonna wait till that some bitch sets down and loads his gun. Then I'm gonna say something. Okay. So at this point,
You're like,
it no longer was a duck hunt. It was particularly a bar fight.
Yeah.
At this point, was cool, whatever. But so yeah, this guy gets set down, and I see Drew stand up, and he just starts walking. I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay. So I kind of start following him a little bit. And by the time I get out to the end of our decoys, Drew is already over there yelling at the guy. And,
is the guy yelling back?
No,
Just
not really.
Taking it.
He's just kind of like, he did say, okay, so I'm trying to remember what Drew said. I don't want to blast Drew like that, but some words was said. Stuff like, you stupid motherfucker. Like, well, what the whole deal was, he was going to shoot our swing birds.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times the birds was coming from the north, or even if they was coming from the south, they was dropping down at our decoys, pick back up, go over the tree line, come back, swing birds.
Yeah.
And then right before they hit our spread, they start dropping, which is right over him.
Right over him.
And that's what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And, they got in a yelling match and this and that. And I did hear the guy say, well, it's public land.
Yeah, but...
And that sent Drew over the top.
Like, just because it's public doesn't mean you can...
Well, Drew turned around, looked at him, said, yeah, public land, we was here at 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
Like, what happened to the respect?
No.
You don't get it. People don't give it.
Yeah.
And it makes you so mad.
Irritated as
and how I was raised to hunt is, especially public land, like don't ever do hunter harassment shit.
Yeah.
Well,
that was
you wouldn't want people, and that's like going back to whenever I come down to a drive and I see trucks parked there. If I had my truck parked there, yes, it's public land. Everybody has the right to be there. But if I was in their shoes, I wouldn't want somebody to come walking in on me.
Yeah.
And that's what...
And I guess that's part of what was different about me this year was I wasn't parked anywhere where anybody knew I was there. But even with that one guy, I shined my light. He knew I was there, but he still kept coming.
Had the same instance on a duck hunt one time, too.
It's just like...
And the early morning. Had the lights on, and here came these guys, and had the lights on.
Yeah.
And just kept coming. And then get down there, and you confront them, and, I didn't see your light.
Yeah, you did.
Okie dokie, then.
That's how that's going to be.
If you didn't see my light, you probably shouldn't be duck hunting, sir.
Yeah, like I could see you coming.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that was, last year in turkey season, me and one of my cousins from Louisiana, we were down and we were in the timber working these birds. He was calling them all morning long, at least an hour. He had these birds talking to him. And then all of a sudden, we thought we saw something down on the other edge of the timber down by the lake.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, we hear this terrible sounding slate call. And we're like, really? Like, we've been working these birds all morning, and now they just shut up and took off. Because this call is just, this guy was terrible sounding. And we're like, if you're going to do that, and he literally walked within like 50 yards of him. I don't know how he got as close as he did before he started hitting the call. Maybe just because they were distracted by us, but it was just like, God, like if you're going to do it, don't be so terrible at calling.
Well,
like, I know I'm not the best caller, but
yeah,
man,
the
it was
first
bad.
2 years I turkey hunted with my cousin, he wouldn't let me bring a call to the woods.
Yeah, I mean,
it just because I was not good. I was not comfortable with them yet. Especially, he told me, he's like, well, get good on a dive or not, get good on a slate call or box call, and yeah, you can bring those. And then he always used a mouth call, so I was like, no, I don't want to go straight to a mouth call. No, you need to learn these first. And
which I skipped over those, but
yeah, well, I mean, it is what it is. But his whole deal behind it is learn your shit.
If you're gonna do it, then
do it right.
Do it right. Yeah.
Don't half-ass it.
And if that guy had to have known there was somebody working those birds, because those birds don't just work like that for that long.
No.
To where you can hear them. I mean, we even had a guy later on when we were standing at the truck come up and was like, "Man, did you guys hear those birds this morning?" We're like, "No, we didn't hear anything."
No.
He's like, "You guys gotta be kidding me. I was on the other side of the cove and could hear those things for like an hour straight." We're like, "Oh, man, we didn't hear anything. We've been sitting right out here all day."
Yeah.
Of course, I mean, I'm sure
birds must not have woke up this morning.
I'm sure he knew we were lying out our ass, but
yeah, he did.
It is what it is.
If he knew where he was, he knows you heard him.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we were talking to him. Obviously, we knew where they were, but it's just like people just don't get it.
No,
they're out there just to get the trophies.
Yep.
Really.
Yep. And then that's
stuff
the
to
thing.
Hang on the wall so they can brag about them.
They want the trophy so bad, but they can't do things right to get that.
The big trophies.
Yes.
They just get regular old.
Yeah. Win? Fuck that. We don't need. Who needs win?
Yeah.
Shit like that. It's like, stop being an idiot.
Yeah. I'm not going to hunt at a certain time of day. I'm just going to go out there.
Read up. In some instances, watch YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, there's guys out there obviously telling you what to do, what not to do.
Juries is a good one. My favorite.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite series of the juries is the Jury 13.
Oh, yeah.
Where they talk about everything biologic. They talk about all that stuff, and it's it's a good one to watch. You learn a lot about the different phases, and the times to hunt, and are obviously stationed out of the Midwest, so places are different, but it's fairly.
But I mean, you just
somewhat accurate.
You got to pay attention to your surroundings.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're out there, that's what blows my mind about some of those. Like this year, like that second guy, he didn't even know I was there. It's like, how do you not know somebody's there, but yet you're out here watching for deer, and I can clearly see you in the wide open.
Mm-hmm.
So you should be able to see me.
Now there is a chance that it could have been a family emergency. I get that.
But if it was, you wouldn't have stopped at the field edge to look around.
That's true too.
I mean,
red flag number one.
Yeah.
In this case, white flag number one.
He just was not. I don't know what he was doing. I really don't.
Yep.
There was no explanation. Of course, I didn't yell at him, so
probably wasn't a thought behind his eyes.
No.
I mean, just typical, But that's what I'm saying, and that's what you're saying. You're going to hunt public land. You're going to have stuff like this happen.
But if you're going to hunt public, just be respectful to the other people that are out there.
Yep.
And they might not even be there. Just be observant and pay attention.
Yeah, because you don't know if someone drops somebody off.
Yeah.
And
like where we're hunting, a lot of the times now, on that public land, we walk from a house. So, like, you don't know if we're out there or not.
Yep.
I mean, I have seen some of those neighbors that you think they're out there, but then they're not. I mean, it's just, you just run into those instances, but you got to pay attention to what you're doing while you're out there. You're walking through the woods, pay attention if there's a stand there or not.
Yeah.
I mean, I know one might pop up here or there randomly, but
not only to look for other people, for your safety as well.
Yeah.
There is some idiots out there that You know,
they wouldn't act as calm as I did.
Yeah. Well, there are some idiots out there that if they see movement, they're shooting.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they're not.
We
gonna
know a
wait
couple
and
people
see.
like that.
They're not going to wait and see what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, and yeah, yeah, it can be real dangerous real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even if they are wearing bright orange, sometimes you make sure you're looking. Even when you go to take a shot, make sure you're looking behind.
Yeah.
Because I've had times where it's like that, where I'll go to take a shot and it's like, oh, there's somebody on the other side, like several hundred yards away, but it's like, oh, I didn't realize there was anybody there.
Yeah.
Like,
no, you was talking about a turkey story. I got a turkey story for everybody. So we was hunting. I'm just going to go ahead and say it because everyone hunts it. It is what it is. It's Calhoun Bottoms.
Yeah.
Hunting down there one year. And got out one early morning. It was kind of crazy where I was going at. You had to drive past all the pull-ins and everything. And it was probably an hour before daylight. And no trucks was around or nothing. It was a weekday.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, cool. I think it was the first week of turkey season that year. I think it was in 2017. But yeah, so I get to the spot. I get out, get everything packed up, head out there. And I get to where I want to be. I know there's been birds in there, and it's public land. I haven't killed very many birds at the time. I'd be happy with a jake. I knew there was at least 4 or 5 jakes in there and a couple longbeards. So, you know,
something with the hair out of its chest. You'll take a shot.
He's got so much of a nose hair, he's getting it. So, yeah, I mean, I get in there, I get set up, and so basically to break it down for you, I had public land all around me. The closest private piece was probably 400 to 500 yards to my back left. And I'm set up and I'm kind of on this field edge. My decoys are about 15 yards in front of me. I hear hens in the tree line in front of me. I'm like, boom. I knew where they was. They was there.
Yeah.
And it was a couple hens started waking up for the morning. And any time when I'm hunting, as soon as I hear that first hen, I'll get out my slate call and I'll do a couple soft putts and purrs, some calcs, you know, just soft stuff, soft tree calling.
Yeah.
So I do that. And it's just getting to this point where it's getting daylight enough to where I can see the outline of the trees and I could see the turkeys.
Yeah.
Well, I'm watching these birds and all of a sudden one just pops in the strut on the limb. And I'm like, oh, fuck yeah. Here we go.
Yeah. You got it now.
I'm like, okay. And threw my binos up and looked again. I'm like, I could see that the fan wasn't split or jacked up. I mean, that's a dominant gobbler.
Yeah.
You know, maybe a 2-year-old at least. I'm like, all right, cool. And next obstacle, he's got a bunch of hens with him.
Yeah.
He's got like 7 or 8 hens with him.
Work past
I'm
those
like,
hens.
You know, he may bust away later and come back, but who knows? So, yeah, I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden this bird just starts lighting up. Just, I think he gobbled 20 times on the limb.
Yeah.
Just lit up, rocking the top of the tree. About fly down time, I saw a couple hens fly down, and I kept hearing something behind me. So I kind of quit paying attention to them a little bit. At first, I thought it was in a tree, and I'm like, oh shit, there's a turkey right behind me.
Yeah. Waiting
to hear a gobble at this moment. And all of a sudden I hear, I'm like, jerk my head back over. Okay, they're flying down. And I instantly look, and the gobbler's gone. I'm like, all right, well, he was the first one to hit the ground, which isn't, you don't normally see that a lot. He normally waits till his hens hit. I mean, it just depends. And so, yeah, I was just sitting there, and by this time, all the turkeys are out of the trees. I can see the longbeard strutting with the hens. Now, they're probably a good 200 yards away.
And he shut up by now.
And he just shut up.
Yep.
Well, they kind of start going to the west. So I'm like, well, being desperate, I'm just going to throw the mount call in and cut at them, see if it sparks up anything.
Yeah.
Well, I started with some yelps, and he didn't do anything. And then I started cutting, and he cut me off. No, he liked that. But he was with his hens. He didn't care.
Yeah.
Well, they went about 30 yards up that tree line, and they kind of stayed there for a second, and all of a sudden, I don't know what got into that gobbler's head, but he just started letting loose.
Going nuts.
Gobbling. He gobbled maybe 10 times in 4 minutes. I mean, just
Yeah.
just going nuts. Well, all of a sudden, I keep hearing something behind me. I heard it early on, but like 40 minutes later, I can start hearing it again. I'm like, what the hell is that? Well, I'm looking. They're all the way over there, so I'm just not even really paying attention to them as much. So I'm looking back behind me, and then all of a sudden, and I look, and this bird has cut the distance, and he's coming. I had a Jake decoy set up and just a hen. I just had two decoys out. That's all I had. And he just started coming. Well, about that time, I'm like, well, fuck whatever's behind me. Like, I need to get set up and kill this bird. Well, all of a sudden, this bird's not really running, but he's just kind of walking really fast.
Yeah.
And he stops. And he puts his head up. And he looks.
You're like, what?
He turns back to the west, starts running and flying. And I was covered good, which that don't mean anything.
Yeah.
They could still see you. They can see anything, you know. If turkeys could smell, we would never kill them.
Oh, never.
And
not at all.
I'm like, what just happened? Like, it was going good. Nice big bird was coming.
Yeah.
I look to my left, and there's this dude just standing out in the middle of the field.
You're like, seriously?
And I'm not in the middle of the field. I over-exaggerated there. He was 20 yards out from the tree line I was sitting in.
That's still way out there.
And I'm like, how did you not see them? I think he knew I was there. He probably, what I've been hearing, he probably came up, saw me or my decoys, and that could have been the bird he was going after for a while, because I was watching him for a while, and he just
didn't want you to kill him.
I'm going to screw his hunt up. I'm just going to walk out there, and I'm just going to screw it up.
Yeah.
And I was pissed.
Yeah.
I'm like, I stood up, and I look over at him, and I'm like, who the fuck do you think you are?
Yeah.
Like, oh, what? He turned and looked at me, acted like he never saw me in his life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm just out here prospecting for birds. I'm like, well, you found them.
Yeah.
And now you don't have them.
Yeah.
And with that bird, 5 minutes prior, gobbling his head off.
Was coming in.
We heard that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he'd been listening to it all morning, I'm sure.
And, yeah, I mean, he probably heard me. He probably knew I was there the whole time. He was probably watching the whole thing unfold.
Oh, yeah.
I know he heard me calling. And then as soon as daylight hit, he could have came a little closer and saw me and the decoys, and he was just assessing the situation.
Yeah.
But
knew he couldn't cut it off before it got to you.
Yeah. Oh, he knew I had it in the bag.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as that bird started coming, he knew it was over.
Yeah.
Just as long as I didn't miss. And he didn't want that.
He didn't want you to get it.
And that's the thing with public land. You're going to meet a lot of self-centered people.
Yeah.
That don't care about you.
If I can't have it, then you can't have it.
Yeah. If they don't care about you, they don't care about these people's kids. They don't care about that. They're so self-centered, they just want to kill a turkey.
Yeah.
And those are the people that we got into in another podcast, a previous podcast, that are doing it for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, like, that's a big thing, too, with the kids. Like, you want them to experience that to an extent, because
that way they don't have the golden spoon.
Yeah, and it's a experience of, hey, don't be like that person.
Yeah.
Like, don't ever do that.
Yep.
I think But yet at the same time, you don't want to see them. You don't want them to see you lose your cool over a situation. Yeah. But
so in the beginning of the podcast, we mentioned game wardens. Do you have any game warden stories?
Not really. I mean, I haven't had any personal run-ins at all, honestly.
My first game warden run-in, me and some buddies was fishing a creek.
Yeah.
And it was by a highway. However, we was about a mile back from the bridge. And it's crappie spawning time. Hell, we're in the boat. We're catching crappie.
And, left and right.
Drinking Pepsi out of a cooler and having a good time.
Of course, he probably didn't think it was Pepsi.
Have I told you this one before?
No.
I haven't?
I don't think so.
Well, about that time, here comes a boat by. And they see us and they stop. And they kind of come close to us. And we're just sitting there and they hollered. They're like, hey, you all catching anything? Like, yeah, we're doing pretty good over here. What are y'all using? Tell them what we're using. All right, y'all have a good day. So we're out there for probably an hour and a half longer. And all of a sudden we see a guy in green walking down the side of the feeder creek coming from the bridge. It's like a mile from the bridge. And I'm like, there's no trails to ride anything around here. Like,
he walked that
why is he walking all the way down here? Like, so I'm like, obviously looking at my buddies like, hey, is everyone legal? Like, this is a good time to, we should have discussed this before, but right now it really matters. Is everyone legal? Everyone good? Yeah, we're good.
Because if not, we're getting out of here.
We double checked all the crappie while he was coming. Like, yeah, I mean, everything's good. Like, we're fine. We're squared away. We're good. Just to make sure. And he comes down there. He gets close to us. He's standing right at the edge of the water. And he's like, hey, boys. And we're kind of like, yes, sir. No, come on over here. Okay.
Yeah.
So, we paddle on over there. We just in a little 10-footer. And we get to the bank, and he's face to face with us right now.
Yeah.
Y'all catching anything? Yeah, we've caught a few. All right, you got your license, this and that. Handed all of our stuff to him. All right, that all checks out. Let me check your fish. Okay. Checked all of our fish. Everything was good. What's in that cooler?
Pepsi.
Pepsi. You ain't lying to me, are you?
No.
No. So if I open that cooler and there's Bud Lights or something in there, y'all are in trouble. We ain't getting in trouble, sir. Go ahead and open that cooler. Hell, I'll open it for you.
Yeah, here.
So I picked up the cooler, set it down on the edge of the boat, and opened it up. There wasn't one beer in there. Never did have a beer in there. And
he was probably like, man, I just walked all this way for nothing.
I made him feel even worse because he was just being a straight out dick.
Yeah.
Like just being rude. So I shut the cooler back and he's like, well, and he said, there must be a misunderstanding. We've got to call in people, miners out here drinking beer and fishing. I told him, I'm like, you ain't busy, are you?
Yeah, like, you have nothing better to do but come out here and check us.
And he's like, well, I'm plenty busy, but anytime, fishing and miners get involved and, people come up missing, which I understand that. It happens all the time.
Oh, yeah,
But I'm like, whatever, and
wasn't like you guys were acting crazy or nothing.
It started eating at me whenever he, said, good luck, boys, and started walking back to the truck. It really started eating at me.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. All right. I'm not going to say it. And I couldn't hold it anymore. I turned around, I looked, and I said, hey. He turned around, he's like, what's that? I was like, did you just walk a mile to bust all of us drinking Pepsi? Yeah, I did. Okay, just checking.
Yeah,
like, I bet he feels like an idiot. Like,
he had to walk 2 miles just to go from there and back. Yeah, it's crazy what people, and it's probably people that are doing the illegal stuff that are trying to get the other people caught.
Yeah,
most
exactly.
of the time.
To keep the heat off of them.
Yeah.
Another story. It was I think it was 2018 deer season. I'd shot a doe in the middle of October. It was still warm out. And I had killed it on another farm. And the night before, I shot it. And it was a gut shot. So I tracked that deer for 300 to 400 yards. And the only reason why I kept going is the blood was just pouring.
Yeah.
This deer could have been back lung. I didn't have a camera, didn't have a nocturnal or any of that. So I'm like, well, it could have been just a little back, still lung. But why hasn't she crashed yet? So I kind of relate this hunt with your doe a little bit as well, because she hit a creek, and there was just blood on the rocks in the creek, and this creek was deep. I mean, it was a deep creek.
Yeah.
And I'm like, like I said, I've already went 300 to 400 yards at this time. Well, I'm going to drop a pin here. I know where she crossed. I'm going to come back in the morning early, and hopefully she's laying
Still
over there
there.
somewhere.
Yeah.
I couldn't cross the creek right there.
Yeah.
It was so deep. So, I went back to the truck, and my dad was with me. And, we got up the next morning and went back up there and started looking again. Sure enough, went to the other side of the creek, picked up on blood right away. All right, cool. I'm going, probably went 200 yards, and then it started thinning out again. Or it started thinning out the first time. I'm like, oh, shit. Meat's plugging up the hole. It could be anything.
Something.
And it literally turns into specks and nothing. Not a drop of blood.
Yeah.
Well, I go about 20 yards ahead, and I'm just kind of looking. And I look down, and I see little tiny speck size of a tick on a leaf. I'm like, oh, I got blood here. So started following it again. I mean it, little tick specks.
Yeah.
Just little bitty stuff every 2 feet. And I'm on my hands and knees at this point looking. Well, all of a sudden I smell her. Just nasty. And I'm like, well, there she is somewhere. She's somewhere here. So I stand up, and when I stand up, kind of crazy how she died. She was bedded. Her front legs was in the bed position, but her back legs was kicked out.
Yeah.
Well, she was bedding next to, she was kind of leaning against a log, a big deadfall.
Yeah.
And that's how she died. I looked at the shot. I'm like, yeah, it's a gut shot. This one's going to be fun. Late overnight. It's kind of warm out.
Yeah, she's getting
so I call my boss. I'm like, hey, found the deer. Like, I'm going to get out of here and get to work. So we get the doe tagged. Everything's legal. Everything is good.
Yeah.
And get the doe loaded up in the truck and get her back to the house. Got her called in too before we even did anything.
Yeah.
Checked in and everything. Everything legal beagle. Get back to the house. I went ahead and skinned her and everything. I deboned her that night. When I got back home, I was going to go ahead I quartered her. Then whenever I got back home, I was going to go ahead and debone her and get everything prepared.
Yeah.
I get done with all that. I leave for work. And I get to the job, and my dad calls me. He said, hey, someone was just here. I said, who was that? And he goes, he said, who was that? Or I said, who was that? And he goes, game wardens, 2 of them.
Like, what?
I'm like,
that's weird.
For what? They was asking about your doe you shot last night. I'm like, Dad, you was with me. Like, you was with on the track job with me.
Yeah.
You know good as well everything was legal. What'd they want? Well, they was beating around the bush a lot. And I'm like, well, what'd they say? Well, apparently they told him, they came up to the door. First red flag. We're going to say white flag in the podcast. First white flag. They didn't even introduce themselves.
Really?
Normally, you run in the gate, warden.
I mean,
hey, I'm Officer blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Missouri Fish and Game, this and that. They didn't say shit. Hey, is Andy Hicks home? No, he just went to work.
Yeah.
And, oh, well, when does he get off? Questioning him like that.
Like, why?
Like I committed a felony or something.
Like you did something completely wrong.
I robbed a bank. And Dad's like, well, he gets off at around 5. Like, what's the deal, guys? Why are y'all here? Oh, well, we noticed he shot a deer and tagged it in, called it in and everything this morning. And we get stuff on our phones when we get deer that, checked in the area, and we come out and we check them. Well, first, I know that's bullshit.
Yeah, like since when?
Yeah. And after Dad told me, I'm like, okay, they're lying to my dad.
Yeah.
Okay. And Dad continues the story, and it basically got to the point where they was standing looking at each other, my dad and these 2 officers, and not saying a word.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad finally was like, do y'all want to see the deer? Like, I can take you to the deer.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd like to see that. We'd like to see the deer, yes. Please take us to it. So Dad took it into the shop.
It's quartered up.
And opened up the freezer, and there's the 2 hindquarters, the front quarters, and the back straps, and everything's there. Even a deer leg. I always keep my deer legs obviously there.
Yeah.
And oh, well, y'all cut it up?
Yeah.
Do you know how warm it is, sir? Where did you get your degree at?
Yeah, no kidding.
I wonder.
Don't want that thing to go nasty
and
for a day.
Yeah, they told my dad that. And I'm like, my dad's telling me this. And I'm like, who the fuck are these clowns?
Yeah, are they real?
Like, who are these people? Like,
rookies.
Yeah. I'm like, they almost had to be.
Yeah.
One of the guys was older, I guess. Other guy was younger, but so yeah, I'm like, whatever. And Dad's like, well, they asked for your number and they're probably going to call you. I gave them your number.
Okay.
All right, they can call me.
Yeah, I didn't do anything wrong.
So I got off the phone with him, and not even 30 seconds later, my phone rings.
Yeah.
And it's a Clinton number. So I answer it. Yep. And said, yeah, this is so-and-so with Missouri Fish and Game. I said, oh, it's nice of you to introduce yourself. Well, you don't need to be a smartass about. No, I'm being a smartass because, one, you did not even introduce yourself to my dad.
Oh, yeah.
I thought y'all were,
supposed to do that.
To do that, just at least be a little more respectful.
Yeah.
And, oh, well, I guess we didn't realize we did that. I'm like, what do y'all want?
Yeah.
Well, you shot a deer last night, right? Or you shot a deer this morning, right? I said, no, sir, I shot it last night. And you didn't tag it till this morning? I said, no, I gut shot it. She ran far. I let her lay, so that way I didn't kick her up and take a chance to not get her at all. I came back this morning, found her, tagged her, everything else. Oh, well, okay. So I noticed you have 2 accounts open on your MDC app. And I'm like, do what?
Yeah, like.
And he's like, yeah, you have 2 different mow hunting whatever opened up. So you got 2 deals where you can get tags. Is pretty much what the issue is.
Saying.
I told him, I said, well, the only thing I can think of is it was convenient. I normally order all my stuff on Mow Hunting app and do it that way, but I was in Walmart and I'm like, well, I'll go ahead and get my deer tags. While I'm here, well, the person at Walmart created a whole new account.
Oh, gosh.
So that was the whole issue. And, in the beginning of the phone call, whenever I opened it up like that, they was instantly barking right back at me and this and that. And they even came to the point where they asked me where I worked. And I told them where I worked.
And then they're like,
oh, okay. And, okay, well, we're sorry to, I said, no, y'all lied to my dad, for one thing. You didn't only lie to him about the getting a notification on your phone bullshit. You lied to him about the problem.
Yeah.
Like, how hard was that to tell my dad, hey, this is what's going on. We just need to talk to him and get this figured out.
Yeah. Figure out why he's got 2 accounts open.
Yeah, and he's like, well, I know we probably didn't handle that the best, this and that. And then he goes right back to kind of being a dick. And he's like, well, we're going to need you to come into your local MDC office and get all this figured out. I said, well, sir, I'll call him.
Yeah.
I ain't wasting my time coming in there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I called him and
figured it out.
Figured it all out in
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
And done deal.
Which they could have done. But.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Didn't even have to bring me. I mean, I'm glad they did to an extent because of the situation. That way I knew.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at least they're somewhat doing their job.
But they didn't have to handle things the way they did. Straight ball-faced lying to my dad.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, it wasn't a very professional way to hand things, to handle things. I don't know.
Which, I mean, I get it. Like, they deal with some pretty crappy situations.
Oh, yeah.
People that are doing stuff illegal and being assholes about it and lying about it. But
in my instance, I had everything.
Yeah.
I had everything there. I mean,
everything was to the T.
The tag was to the I. The tags.
Which brings up a good point, because I do have some buddies at one time there. One of them actually, he was dating and may have been engaged to one of the MDC's officers at the time.
Game wardens.
Yeah, game warden. And he actually got in trouble because they forgot to notch their tag, went and hung it up in the tree in their front yard, came by.
It's a little shit like that they'll get you.
Yeah, so I mean, just when you're out there and when you put your hands on the deer, just don't forget to at least notch
slow
it.
down. You know, okay, I got to do this. I got to do that.
Even if you're just using the app, just go on there and make sure you notch it.
At least.
It'll save you so much hassle in the long run.
Yeah.
And money.
And you'd be surprised, I don't know, from experience on that side of things.
Because you can't get out of that.
Yeah.
I mean, you do it or you don't do it.
Like I said, I don't know from experience, but I'm sure just notching the deer will take you a lot farther as opposed to not messing with it at all. You know, they're going to think otherwise. Yeah. But if you at least went and put forth the effort to go ahead and notch it, I mean, that's what I'm saying. When I kill a turkey, right afterwards, when I'm standing over that bird in the field, a couple minutes after I shot him, I'm boom. Okay, I'm done. I'm good.
Yeah, and that's even like this year when I shot that doe, I made sure I got to a point where I had just enough service to go ahead and notch it.
Yeah.
And then when I got back to the house, of course, I went ahead and telechecked it, but
right.
It was just like, no, I'm too close. Obviously, I was driving right down the highway with it. I'm like,
yeah,
in the back of a side by side. I'm like, no,
yeah,
like I'm not getting caught in this 1/8 of a mile that I'm going to be right here on the road. I'm like, no, not going to take that chance. But
well, we have surpassed an hour. I got one more story, and then we'll call it quits. What are you doing?
I don't know.
Speaking of turkeys and game wardens, last year I had a veteran down hunting. I actually had 2 veterans down, and we was hunting. And the week prior to that, I had my dad in on this spot. He had 2 jakes run in, and he didn't get a shot at them. They was just going 90-0, being jakes.
Yeah.
And the following week, I bring a couple veterans down, and we set up in this spot. And so we was kind of tucked back into, we had thick stuff on both sides. It was a field edge is what it was, but we had thick stuff on both sides. We can only see so much of the field. I mean, you had briar bushes and stuff right here next to you. And we're sitting there, and we didn't hear it gobble all morning. Well, I was debating, let's get out of here, go down to Warsaw, eat some breakfast, come back.
Yeah.
See if we can strike a late morning bird up. I just got done thinking about that, and I hear something, and I look up, and at 15 yards through the brush, here are 2 jakes just running to the decoy.
And you're like, what?
And I'm like, oh, that's those 2 jakes that my dad almost shot one of them the other day. Well, the one I had hunting with me, he's from Alaska, and I think that may have been his first turkey hunt.
Yeah.
And he had 2 birds that are shootable
Legal. Yeah.
run into the decoys 10 yards in front of him. It'd been 15 yards for me and the other veteran, but like 10 yards for him, like right there.
Yeah.
10
ready.
steps.
He was there.
Right there. And they're basically beating up my Jake decoy, like taking it to town, like just whooping the shit out of it. And I made the mistake, but I was back behind the guy that's never killed a turkey before. The other veteran, he's been with me. He's killed, I think, 1 or 2 turkeys with me. He's been through it with me. But, the guy wasn't ready. He had his gun across his lap. His knees wasn't up to shoot or nothing.
Nothing. He
And
was just sitting there.
I'm like 5 yards behind him, and I'm like, hey. And he's not doing nothing. And I'm like, shoot the turkey. And he's like, not doing nothing. And I'm like, shoot the turkey. And his head moves. And I'm like, what's he doing? Like, these 2 birds are right here. And I couldn't move because they was right there.
Yeah.
Curtis, he was setting, the other veteran that was with me was sitting right beside me. And I'm like leaning up, talking to this guy. And I'm like, shoot the turkey, like he's right there. They wasn't crossed, they was apart and everything. And about that time, in my right ear, 2 birds.
Like,
you gotta be shitting me. So I'm like, dang it. Well, it is what it is. Like, we'll do the right thing here. We'll call the game warden. Worst they're gonna do is take the bird. Yeah. Like, if they was generous, maybe they could. And I even brought it up to him, which we'll get to that. But let me tag one.
Yeah.
Like, I'll take him and eat him. Like, it don't make a difference to me. Like, I'll burn a tag on that. That was, that was cool. And yeah, so we're over the birds, and I'm talking to the other guy, and I'm like, hey, you all right there? And he's like, dude, I froze. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, I froze. I couldn't move.
Yeah, like, and everybody has that first time, and it's just like...
And it was hilarious. 'Cause I remember to this day what he said. He said, I was sitting there, and nothing was happening, and then all of a sudden, there's 2 velociraptors just running in at me. I'm like, yep.
Yeah. Like, I know the feeling.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. I feel sorry for the guy because, dude, he was right. The birds was right there in his lap. And truth be known, he probably could have raised his gun up and shot one. They was too busy whooping the shit out of that Jake. They didn't care.
They didn't care what was going on.
Next thing you know, he over here, he just rolls up and boom. I'm not mad at him either. Like, this shit happens. I've done it before.
Yeah.
The best thing to do is turn it in. And this dude's from Alaska. And I told him, I'm like, you haven't dealt with Missouri game wardens yet.
Yeah.
Like, I can about imagine how Alaska game wardens are. Missouri's kind of ruthless. Like, there's good officers out there. You get good ones. I've gotten good ones.
Yeah, anytime I have dealt with any, they've been good run-ins. So
anyways, we get a hold of this game warden, and I was like, well, what do you want us to do? Like, and he's like, well, just take it into the place there in Clinton, the headquarters there in Clinton, and somebody will process them up for you. I'm like, all right, sounds good. So we go in there, and we get in there and shut the truck doors, and this lady comes walking out. And so, we get out of the truck, shut the doors. Lady comes out, grab the birds out of the back, and set them down on the concrete there. And she's like, who's the shooter? Just stuck up. Who's the shooter? And the veteran that was with me is me. They crossed right at the last minute and should have waited. Like, And it just happened.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're probably going to take a bird, and then you can take your pick on which one you want to keep.
At least they let him choose.
Yeah. And then at the end of it, she was writing out the information to log it, I guess. And she's like, "Who's the guide here?" Me. She's like, "So we need to write you a ticket." I'm sorry?
For what?
We need to write you a ticket. I don't, to this day, seems like she may have been joking a little bit with me,
Yeah.
but it didn't come off like it.
Yeah.
It's like, why write me a ticket? Like,
What did I do?
one thing, I didn't even know he was shooting. It's a funny story to this day.
Yeah.
I didn't even know he was shooting, and all of a sudden, just boom, right next to my ear. I'm like, oh shit! And then 2 birds start rolling. I'm like, holy crap! But yeah, I guess to boil it down a little bit, you're gonna mess up.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're all gonna have mistakes. We're human.
Plain and simple. Everyone messes up. You're going to, especially when you're hunting. If you do something like in this instance where that veteran with me, he shot 2 turkeys with 1 shot. That's illegal to kill 2 birds here in Missouri.
Yeah.
And that happened. So
just try
call
to do
it
the
in.
right thing.
Do the right thing, and 90% of the time you might get backfired for it just because of how people act. But at the end of the day,
you got to feel better with yourself.
At the end of the day, that's all that matters. Is you're feeling better about yourself. You feel like you're doing better for.
At least you did the right thing.
Yes, pretty much. So, well, we just hit almost an hour and 20 minutes on this one.
Heck yeah.
So we kind of got down some rabbit holes and stuff. So,
hopefully we can get our buddy in there this week.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm hoping.
That'd be a nice big show for you guys.
Yeah, that'll be a good one.
Yeah.
3 Magnum bucks in here.
Yeah. Not just our little rotted away dead dude over here.
Hey, he's pretty.
Hey,
that is a good deer.
That's the first. I've never found a shed, but I found that deer in 2020.
Yeah.
That's the biggest one. I mean, that's the only one I've ever found just laying around. So
right. Yep.
I was happy with it.
Yeah. So, yeah, hopefully Josh can get in here and hopefully not have a day of work like he had today.
Yeah.
I'm hoping he talks about that because that'll be
something interesting.
Yeah. But anyways, everybody, thank you for listening to this week's Ultimate Whitetail Bowhunter podcast. Like they always say, dream big, hunt hard. We love you.
Peace out.